Assalamu alaikum everyone. क्या हाल है? कैसे हो रहे हैं आप लोगों के पेपर्स? And what is the stress level like? Last day क्या करना चाहिए? Okay, वैसे तो to be honest I'm not completely in favor of learning something new at the very last day. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I wanted to do this earlier. I made a commitment, but I couldn't do it. So that's the reason why I'm doing it. But last day, you should just be reviewing everything that you've done. Okay, I wouldn't suggest to put yourself under unnecessary stress by attempting a past paper or doing questions of a certain topic. I wouldn't recommend that. You should just be relaxing and giving your mind a break. चलें, good to hear that IGCSE students have done well. Sis file के questions तो पहले देखे भी नहीं. बेटा ये पास पेपर से ही क्वेश्चंस लिए हैं, मैं कोई अपने थोड़ी बनाए. सर 55 marks, बेटा ये थ्रेशोल्ड पे डिपेंड करता है. I don't know if that's enough for an A. If the paper is easy, then of course you should get more marks than that. Those marks aren't enough for an A. Sir, the maths paper 2 went so well. Good to hear that. Good to hear that. Good to hear that. Good to hear you guys did well in the paper. IGCSE students did well in paper 2. Okay, chale, let's start. So today, as you can see, the objective is to do composite function, domain, and range. Now I've shared this PDF in the description. Okay, you guys can go check it out from there. Now there are two main concepts essentially: how to find the domain of a composite function. You'll find questions like these, where the question will ask you to find the value of x such that the composite function exists. Okay. And the other variation is that the question can ask you to find out the range of a composite function. Okay. Now we're going to learn both of them, inshallah, through questions. Okay, so I'm not going to be teaching the concept separately. I will teach it through questions only. So here is a question. This is again fairly recent, from May-June 2022, paper 11. It says the function f is defined as follows. Find an expression for f inverse of x. Okay, so y is equals to x squared minus 4 over x squared plus 4. Now you cross multiply. So then you have x squared y plus 4y, which is equal to x squared minus 4. And then remember, when we're finding out the inverse, what are we doing? We're making x the subject. Okay, so we get all the x's on one side. So we're going to have x squared y minus x squared, which is equal to minus 4 minus 4y. Okay, and then if you take x squared common, so it's going to be y minus 1, which is equal to minus 4 minus 4y. And then if you make x squared the subject, it's going to be minus 4 minus 4y over y minus 1. And then in the end, don't forget to do the final step, which is f inverse of x. And obviously you will take the square root on both sides. Okay, now when you do take the square root on both sides, you will have plus minus. Okay, now how do we decide whether we're going with plus or not? So if it's greater than, then we go with plus. If it's less than, then we go with minus. So since it's greater than, we're going to go with positive. And don't forget to replace the y with x. So minus 4 minus 4x over x minus 1 is your final answer. Okay, so that's it. The first part is pretty easy. Sir, please tell them we don't want to be. But abhi tum phir aa gaye. Okay. Khair. This class will be around an hour and a half. Okay. There was a question to find f inverse of x, something like that. I can't remember. Okay. Khair. Anyway. Now, then there's part B, which is show that 1 minus 8 over x squared plus 4 can be expressed as x squared minus 4 over x squared plus 4. Okay, so this is a pretty easy question, but notice that it's also then asking you to write down the range of f. Okay, so it's a 4-mark question where there's a mark for range as well. Okay, so what do we do? Here's what we do. So first we take the LCM, which is going to be x squared plus 4. Okay, so this we multiply by x squared plus 4, which means this also we multiply by x squared plus 4. So what do we have? We have x squared plus 4 minus 8. So this is a pretty easy question. I think any grade 9 student will also be able to solve this. Okay, but that's not what you get the mark. I mean, obviously you get marks for that as well, but that's not what the question is trying to test over here. What the main test over here is this. So now the question is asking you to find the range. Now before you find the range, it's always a good idea to get friendly with the function, okay, to get familiar with the function basically. So 1 minus 8 over x squared plus 4 is your function, okay, and what is the domain? The domain is x is greater than 2. Okay, now let's see what happens if I plug in 2. Now I know you guys will say, okay, well, it's greater than 2, you can't plug in 2. Okay, I agree, but let's see what happens if I plug in 2. So if I plug in 2, here's what happens. We get 1 over 8 over 2 square plus 4. Now 2 square is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, and 8 upon 8 is 1. 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, just use your calculator for this. So if you plug in 2, you get 0. If you plug in 3, again, I'm going to use my calculator for this. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to identify a trend over here. Okay, that's the mistake that a lot of us make in functions. We always look for a formula that, you know, if this, then that, if that, then this. Don't do that. Just look for a trend over here. Just plug in a couple of values so that you get an idea of what's really going on. So if you plug in 3, here's what you get. You get 0.3846. And then if you plug in 4, okay, so I'm just going to replace 3 with 4. And here's what we get. We get 0.6. Okay. Now notice what's happening over here is this. As you're plugging in greater and greater value, what's happening is that this value is getting lesser. This value is increasing. Now notice that there will come a point where, let's say you plug in a really large value, f of 1000 for example. Now if you plug in f of 1000, here's what's going to happen. 1000 square plus 4. Now eventually what will happen is that this will approach what? This will approach 0. Why is that? Because notice that your function is this, f of x equals to 1 minus 8 over x squared plus 4. Okay, eventually what will happen is that as x becomes really, really large, let's say it approaches infinity, what happens is that the denominator becomes infinity, and what is 8 upon infinity equal to? 8 upon infinity is equal to 0. So ultimately you will be left with 1 minus 0. So that means the maximum that you can go is 1. Okay, it can't be more than 1. It will always be less than 1. Why? Because as you keep on increasing x, the denominator of this part of the expression starts to increase, and that means now you're dividing 8 into more and more pieces. And if you're dividing 8 into more and more pieces, that means as a result you're getting less and less. And eventually, if you divide 8 by infinity, what do you get? You get 0. So 1 minus 0 is what? 1 minus 0 is 1. And notice the smallest value that we got was 1. The largest value that we get, the smallest value that we got was 0. The largest value that we're getting is 1. So that means f of x will always be in between 1 and 0. So it's going to be greater than 0 and it's going to be less than 1. Now notice something over here, that you're given so much space. Why do you think that space is given? This space is not given so you can apply a shortcut and get the answer. This space is given so that you can do a bit of trial and error, plug in a few values, assume a few values, and then identify a trend in the function. Once you identify a trend in the function, then you will never get a question like this wrong. Okay, now tips for tomorrow's exam. Well, like I said, just don't test yourself. Don't put yourself under unnecessary stress. Just go over what you've done already. Okay, just go over the past paper solutions, go over your notes. Just put some extra emphasis on the stuff that you found yourself struggling in throughout. And that's it. You know, the formulas, equation, the coordinate geometry formulas, equation of circle, trigonometry, go over the graphs, trigonometric equations, differentiation, how to find the maximum value, how to find the nature, how to find the equation of the curve through dy by dx, how to integrate functions, go over that, how to differentiate functions, composite function, power functions, how to find volume when it's rotated along the x-axis, y-axis, stuff like that. Okay. Formulas of circular measure. Now you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to memorize the formulas since the formulas will be given. Okay, but still, it's a good idea to know the formulas. So by the way, for those of you who are watching, I would really appreciate if you guys would like the stream. Okay. Anyway, so this is one question. Now, here is a question which is explain why composite function f of f cannot be formed. Okay. So basically, I have a technique for questions like this which you can apply to any question. Okay. It's called the redo technique. Okay. Now I'll tell you what that is. So basically, this f is your inner function, and we'll do more examples of this. So if you don't fully understand after one example, it's okay. Nothing to worry about. This is the outer function. Now, just remember this. This is basically, R is for range, I is for inner, okay, D is for domain, and O is for outer. This says that the range of the inner function should be equal to domain of the outer function for the composite function to exist. Okay, so I'll write this down. I'm not going to write this down with every question. Since this is the first question, I'll write it down. That for composite function to exist, for composite function to exist, the range of inner function should be equal to domain of outer function. Okay, and what's the inner function? Inner function is the function that comes after. Outer function is the function that comes before. Okay, equal to the domain of outer function. Okay, now keeping all that in mind, let's look at the domain. Now here both the functions are same. F is the inner function and f is also the outer function. So let's see, what is the range of inner function, which is f. The range of inner function we just worked out, and that is f of x is greater than 0, less than 1. What is the domain of outer function? The domain of outer function we also have given, and that is x is greater than 2. Okay, it's given, right? Yeah, it's given right over here. Now if you compare the two, you will notice that they're not equal. Okay, the range of the inner function is not equal to the domain of the outer function, and that is why the composite function cannot be formed. So what's the reason? The reason is this: range of f is not equal to domain of f. That is why the composite function cannot be formed. Okay. Okay, I didn't delete the 2022 stream. Sadly, उसपे copyright का issue था. That's why I've taken them down. Okay. All right. Now let's do another question. If you haven't fully gotten the hang of it, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Let's do another question. Okay. I've taken out plenty of questions which we're going to solve today. Okay. So let's do this question. So this question here says a function f is defined by so and so. Okay. Yeah, this stream will be uploaded. Don't worry about it. This stream is not going anywhere. This stream you will find uploaded. Okay. The function f is defined by f of x for x is greater than 1 upon 3. Find an expression for f inverse of x. Okay. So first of all, we equate this to y equals to 2x over 3x minus 1. We cross multiply, so you have 3xy minus y, which is equal to 2x. You get all the x's on one side. So you have 3xy minus 2x, which is equal to y. Then you take x common, so you have 3y minus 2, which is equal to y. And then x is equals to y over 3y minus 2. And then you do the final step, which is f inverse of x equals to x over 3x minus 2. Okay, easy marks. Then again, it says show that this can be expressed like this. So we do that, 2 upon 3 plus 2 over, let's simplify this. So this becomes 3 into 3 is 9x minus 3. Now we take the LCM. What's the LCM going to be? LCM is going to be 9x minus 3. Okay, so what are we going to multiply this by? We're going to multiply this by 3x minus 1. So this also we multiply by 3x minus 1. So we have 6x minus 2. Okay. And what do we multiply this with? This we multiply by 1. Okay. So we multiply this by 1. And we multiply the numerator by 1 as well. times 1 times 1. So plus 2. So this 2 and this 2 gets cancelled out. And now we have 6x over 9x minus 3, which you might think is not equal to what we were supposed to bring it equal to, but you're wrong. All you have to do is take 3 common in the numerator as well as the denominator. And when you do that, here's what you have. This 3 and this 3 gets cancelled out. And now you have 2x over 3x minus 1. Okay? Okay. Now, then it says state the range of f. Okay. Now, in order to find out the range, always use the function, the expression which is split apart. Okay. So this is what you have, right? You have 2 upon 3 plus 2 over 9x minus 3. Okay. This is what you have. And what's the domain that's given? The domain that is given is that x is greater than 1 upon 3. Okay. Now, if x is greater than 1 upon 3, let's see what happens. Okay, if x is greater than 1 upon 3, let's see what happens if I plug in 1 upon 3. So if I plug in 1 upon 3, notice what happens. What we get is this. We get 2 upon 3 plus 2 over 9 into 1 upon 3 minus 3. Okay. Now, if you simplify this, you will notice this. You will notice that 9 into 1 upon 3 is what? 9 into 1 upon 3 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. And what's 2 divided by 0? 2 divided by 0 is infinity. Okay. So that means what you end up doing is you end up adding infinity to it. Okay. So what happens is that the function approaches infinity. So 2 upon 3 plus 2 upon infinity, it approaches infinity. Okay. बहुत बड़ी value पे चला जाएगा basically. But then what do you think will happen if I keep on increasing the value of x? If I increase the value of x, here's what happens. 2 into, let's say, 9 into 2 minus 3. Okay, now I will get a certain value. And then notice the trend over here. If, let's say, I end up plugging in a very large value of x. Okay, x की जगह, let's say, मैं 1000 डाल दूँ. Then what happens is the denominator gets extremely large. If the denominator gets extremely large, that means if 2 is divided by an extremely large value, if let's say 2 is divided by infinity, okay, think of it this way, that you have 2 slices of pizza and that is being divided by, let's say, 50,000 people, then everyone gets what? Everyone gets technically 0, okay, because what you get is non-existent, okay. So then what happens is that this part becomes equal to 0. This part approaches 0, okay. And if this part approaches 0, then notice that you still have the 2 upon 3. So that means the 2 upon 3 is still there. And what is 2 upon 3 plus 0? 2 upon 3 plus 0 is equals to 2 upon 3. Now what we have done is we've worked out the two endpoints. Okay. We have worked out that it has to be less than infinity. Okay. But infinity is not a value, so we don't have to worry about that. But one thing is for sure is that it will always be what? It will always be greater than 2 upon 3. Okay. It will always be greater than 2 upon 3. Because if you plug in, notice this, if you plug in 1 upon 3, then what happens? You end up turning this into infinity, and when you add infinity to 2 upon 3, the whole value becomes extremely large. But as you plug in a value that is greater and greater than 1 upon 3, what happens is that the denominator starts getting larger and larger, and as the denominator starts getting larger and larger, the overall function starts getting, this part of the expression starts getting smaller and smaller. Now when the denominator becomes extremely large, 2 ends up being divided by a value that's extremely large. And what happens when you divide a value when you divide a value by another value which is extremely large, it becomes 0, or eventually when you add 0 to 2 upon 3, it's equal to 2 upon 3. Okay, so that means it has to be at least 2 upon 3, and all the other values will be greater than 2 upon 3. So there you go. Sir, those were really helpful for my upcoming paper 1 exam on the 9th. Yes, I will be doing more streams. I need to get that streamlined. Okay, what exactly, till what year can you stream and till what year you can't. So once I figure that out, we will do that. Okay, don't worry. Okay, now let's do another question. Let's do another question where we have to find out the range of a composite function. Okay, let's do this one. Yeah. So this is a question from May June 2020, paper 1, variant 3. Let's see what it says. So this question says the function f and g are defined by so and so. Okay, and you have to express f of x in this form. Okay. So This is completing square form. It's pretty easy. X square minus 4x. We leave a bit of space. Plus 3. What do we add to complete the square? We add 2 square. What do we subtract? We subtract 2 square. This part of the expression will compress and become x minus 2 whole square. And 3 minus 4 equals to what? 3 minus 4 equals to minus 1. So there you go. You have f of x, which is equal to x minus 2 the whole thing square. Okay. Now, one thing that I always suggest is that even if the question is not asking, it's a good idea to just sketch the curve. Okay, even though it's not asking, but it will definitely come in handy later on. Okay, the question will not for no reason ask you to convert a function in completed square form. Okay, it will always come in handy. So this curve is turning at 2 comma negative 1. So let's say it's somewhere over here. So this is what it looks like. There you go. Okay, again, I know it's not asking you to do that, but you know, it might later on. Or if it doesn't ask you to do it directly, then it's something that can come in handy later on. Okay. Then it says, it is given that f is a one-to-one function, state the smallest possible value of c. Okay. Now remember, a one-to-one function is always either an increasing function or a decreasing function. One-to-one function दोनों काम नहीं कर सकता. वो ये नहीं कर सकता कि वो increase भी हो रहा है और decrease भी हो रहा है. And naturally, a quadratic function is not a one-to-one function. It is a many-to-one function. Okay. अब आप मुझे ये बताएं कि x is greater than c. क्या? So what do you think is the smallest possible value of c for which this function becomes a one-to-one function? Completing square के steps मैंने video बनाई है, please वो देख लेना, ठीक है? Sir, bring your good morning jokes. Oh, you remember those? I was thinking about it as well. It popped on my Instagram memory, so I was thinking maybe I should do that. But it will just be a repeat of what I did earlier. I can't think of new jokes. Yes, I did a live stream on transformation of functions yesterday. You can go watch that and download the notes. You'll find them in the description also. Anyway, so what would be the answer to this? Hello 2. Why? 2 was enough. But yeah, hello. The answer is 2. Okay, x coordinate of the turning point. Yes, remember, a quadratic function is always one-to-one, either after the x coordinate of the turning point or before the x coordinate of the turning point. Okay, so if you want to make this a one-to-one function, then the smallest possible value of c will be 2. So x has to be greater than 2. There you go. All right, now here's part C. Part C says it is now given that c equals to 5. Find an expression for f inverse of x and state the domain of f inverse. Okay. Now remember this, that the range of the regular function f is equal to the domain of f inverse. And also remember that the domain of f is equal to the range of f inverse. ठीक है, ये याद रखना है आपने at all times. Now, the question says that it is now equal to 5. Now, what that means is that in this curve, we're only looking at it from 5 and onwards, yeah, before 5 and onwards, yeah, okay. So here's what I'm going to do. First of all, before I find out, yeah, chalo, let's first find out the inverse, okay. So first, let's find out the inverse. So what is f of x equal to? Let's use the completed square form. It's x minus 2, the whole thing square, minus 1. Okay. Now we do all the necessary steps to find the inverse. So this becomes y equals to x minus 2, the whole thing square, minus 1. So this is equal to y plus 1, which is equal to x minus 2, the whole thing square. We take the square root on both sides. So now we have x plus 2, which is equal to plus minus square root of y plus 1. Then when you make x the subject, here's what you get. You get plus minus square root of y plus 1 minus 2. And then when you're doing the final step, f inverse of x, so you will just take the positive sign. Why? Because you have the greater than sign with the domain. So positive x plus 1 minus 2. Is it minus 2 or is it plus 2? It's going to be plus 2. Yeah, it's plus 2. Minus 2 it was earlier, now it's going to be plus 2. Okay, great. Okay, now the thing is, how do we write down the domain? So first of all, let's plug in 5 into this function. Let's find out f of 5. So f of 5 will be 5 minus 2, the whole thing square minus 1. 5 minus 2 is 3, 3 squared is 9, 9 minus 1 is 8. So that means f of 5 equals to 8. So that means when you plug in 5, what you get is, you get 8. And if the domain is greater than 5, that means this is the part of the curve that we're looking at, which means that the range will be this. F of x is greater than 8. Now this is the range of f. Now as we know, the range of f is also equal to the domain of f inverse. So if the range of f is f of x greater than 8, what would be the domain of f inverse? It would be x is greater than 8. And there you go. That's your answer. Okay, sir, are there some... Okay, now, find an expression for g of f of x and state the range of gf. Now, someone asked me this question earlier, Abhi, in the chat, I don't know who, that how to find out the range of the reciprocal function. Now, you'll find your answer to this question over here. Now, you have to be very systematic with these questions, first of all. Okay, you can't just have a brainless approach, and please don't look for like shortcuts के, you know, ऐसे कर लिया, इसको इसमें plug in कर लिया, ये कर लिया, answer आ जाएगा. ठीक है, that's not an approach that I would recommend. Okay, you guys are AS Math students. You should have a good in-depth understanding of what's going on. Now, first of all, g of f of x basically means this. It means 1 upon f of x plus... Achha, first of all, let me write down the function. चलो आप लोग परेशान हो जाएंगे कि मैंने क्या कर दिया. So first of all, let's write down g of x, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 1 over x plus 1. Let me make sure of that. Yeah, it's 1 over x plus 1. And then let's write down f of x. Okay, f of x is what? F of x, we know. The completed square version actually is x minus 2, the whole thing square plus minus 1. Okay. Now, first of all, g of f of x basically means that function f will go inside function g. So that means in place of the x of function g, we will now have f of x. So it's going to be 1 upon f of x plus 1. Okay. Now we know what f of x is equal to. We know that f of x is equals to x minus 2, the whole thing square minus 1 plus 1. So minus 1 plus 1 gets cancelled out. And now you have g of f of x, which is equal to 1 upon x minus 2, the whole thing square. Okay. Now the question is, the real question, how do we find out the range? Okay. ये करना कोई कमाल नहीं है. I mean, good job if you did it right. But the real question is, how do we find out the range? Okay. Now, so in order to write down the range, this line that I've drawn is basically for the working of range. Okay. And again, get familiar with the question. Okay. Become friends with the function. Only then will it give you its range. Okay. So g of f of x is basically equal to what? Is basically equal to 1 upon f of x plus 1. ठीक है? यहाँ तक clear है? That all I've done is I've rewritten g of f of x in a different manner. 1 upon f of x plus 1. Now what do we know about f of x? We know that f of x is greater than 8. Okay, we worked that out earlier, that f of x is greater than 8. Sir, for inverse function where we use square root, how do we... Okay, if the domain has greater than, then you use positive. If the domain has lesser than, you use negative. Okay, Taha? I'll repeat. If the domain is greater than, we use positive. If the domain is lesser than, we use negative. Okay? Acha. Then, sir, will you please solve the sequences question, ball 1, which is at the end of this worksheet? Is it at the end of this worksheet? Okay, well, that wasn't the idea. The idea was to solve domain and range questions, but let's see. Okay, if you get the time, then we'll do that. Okay, now, so if let's say f of x is equal to 8. Now, dekho, we know that whatever it is that f of x will replace will be greater than 8. If let's say f of x is equal to 8, then notice what happens. What do you get? You get 1 over 8 plus 1, which is equal to 1 over 9. Now, if f of x, let's say, is equal to 9, then you will get 1 over 9 plus 1, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 1 over 10. If, let's say, f of x is equal to 1 million, if f of x is equal to 1 million, okay, then what will happen? You will have 1 over 1 million plus 1, which is equal to 1 over some extremely large value. Okay, and that would be what? That would be extremely close to 0. Okay, now what we have done is, through the range of f, okay, we have been able to identify what exactly is the pattern. Okay, if let's say, देखो, अब f of x, whatever f of x is, that will now go inside g of f of x. Okay, since this is a composite function, that means the range of the inner function has now become the domain of the outer function. So range of the inner function, that means range of f has now become the domain of the outer function, because whatever it is that you plug in function g is basically equal to function f. ठीक है, अब फंक्शन f को देखो, फंक्शन f की ये रेंज है. अगर मैं फंक्शन f की बिल्कुल स्टार्टिंग वैल्यू प्लग इन करता हूँ, आई गेट 1/9. इफ आई स्टार्ट इंक्रीजिंग द वैल्यूज फॉलोइंग द रेंज, what happens is that the denominator keeps increasing, it keeps getting larger and larger, and eventually it reaches a very huge value, an infinite value, and when you divide it by that, it becomes 0. Now I've done all the hard work. Can you guys keeping this in mind, tell me what the final answer is going to be? Sir, is there a good concept revision video to... I'm sure you'll find plenty of... I noticed Sir Zen did a live stream on function, so I'm sure he must have taught it from scratch. On my channel, no, but on Sir Zen's channel, definitely you'll find a video. Zenomatics, name of the channel. Okay, infinity तो आप मुझे end value बता रहे हैं, but tell me the range of g of f. Notice what is the least value and notice what is the greatest value. G of f of x, notice that it starts from 1/9 and it goes to 0. So how do I write this in range form? Yes, it's less than 1/9 and at the same time it is greater than 0. Good job. It's less than 1/9 but also greater than 0. Don't forget that it's going to be greater than 0. Okay? So the least value that you can get is by plugging in 8, which is 1. And you I know you might be thinking, okay, 8 though is not part of the domain. How come I'm plugging in 8? Well, it's not, and that's the reason why I've not written an equals to sign over here. So when you plug in 8, you get 1/9, and everything and every other value as f of x increases is getting larger and larger. So that is why it will eventually approach what? It will eventually approach 0, and that is why the range is g of f of x greater than 0, less than 1/9. Okay. Now please, I highly encourage you guys to do this. Okay. Through this, you will be more confident about your solution. Okay. Otherwise, you'll just be second guessing. Okay, which is not something you're not going to be confident, and of course that will have a spillover effect. You will not be too confident about the other questions that you solve. Okay. Sir, what is the h and k in a function? Like, how to identify it? But when you bring it in completed square form, then h and k are the turning points. Will we write greater or equal to 0? We'll write greater than 0, not equal to 0, because it will never actually be equal to 0. It will be very close to 0. When you divide 1 by a very large value, it is never actually equal to 0. It's going to be very close to 0. Yes, I know. February March वाली वीडियो पे copyright strike पड़ गया. खैर, I've taken it down. शुक्र है copyright strike ही पड़ा, channel नहीं ban हो गया. Yes, Sir Zain ki 10 hours, mashallah. That's brilliant. Khair, let me find another question which we can solve. Although we will solve most of the questions that we have over here, but I'm just trying to go in a certain sequence. Okay. Okay, now here's another question which is February, March 2019, paper 12. Let's see what this says. So it says express x square minus 4x plus 7 in the form so and so. So we have to bring it in completed square form. So x square minus 4x, leave a bit of space, plus 7. We add half of the square of the coefficient of x. So we subtract that as well. This becomes x minus 2, the whole thing square. Yes, of course, you can do working in columns. That's fine. 7 minus 4 is equals to what? Is equals to 3. There you go. Okay. Then it says, again, remember what I said earlier, that even if it's not asked in the question, it's always a good idea to make a sketch. Okay, it's not like the examiner is going to cut marks for, it's not like the examiner is going to cut marks for doing extra work. Okay. अगर मैं examiner होता तो मैं तो probably आपको extra marks दे देता for going the extra mile, but I guess that's the reason why I'm not the examiner. But anyway, so this is what the curve looks like. Okay, this is where it's turning 2, 3. Then it says state the largest value of k for which f is a decreasing function. Okay, so notice that it's a decreasing function up until here, 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 till here. Okay, from this point onwards, this is the point where it's stationary, and from this point onwards, it will start to increase. And if it starts to increase, that means it's no more a decreasing function. So this is a decreasing function for as long as x is less than 2. That's it. So there you go, boys and girls. That's the answer. Okay, now, then it says the value of k is now given to be 1. Find an expression for f inverse of x and state the domain of f inverse. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to find out what, in fact, first of all, let's find the inverse. Okay, so y is equals to x minus 2, the whole thing square, plus 3. So let's make x the subject. So we have y minus 3 equals to x minus 2, the whole thing square. K is equal to 2. Oh yeah, like good students, let's write the value of k. Then you take the square root on both sides, so you have plus minus square root of y minus 3, which is equal to x minus 2. Then when you make x the subject, so you have plus minus y minus 3 plus 2, which is equal to x. And then you do the final step, which is f inverse of x. Now what do we go with? Do we go with the plus sign or do we go with the minus sign? We go with the minus sign. Why do we go with the minus sign over here? That is because we have less than. Okay, remember, when it's greater than, we go with plus. When it's less than, we go with minus. So minus square root of x minus 3 plus 2. There you go. That's your answer. Okay. Then it says we also need to write down the domain of f inverse. Okay, now remember, the domain of f inverse will be the range of f. Domain of f inverse will be the range of the regular function. So let's plug in 1 in the regular function. So what do we have? We have 1 minus 2, the whole thing square plus t, plus 3. 1 minus 2 is minus 1, square of which is 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4. So f of 1 equals to 4. So what does that mean? That means कि जब हमने 1 plug in किया तो हमारे पास आया 4. Okay, 1 plug in किया तो हमारे पास 4 आया. अच्छा, ये इसको ज़रा थोड़ा इसका साइज़ कम कर देते हैं. Looks kind of weird. Okay, ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा कम हो गया. अब ठीक है. Okay, that means when you plug in 1, the corresponding value is 4. So that means what part of the curve are we looking at? This is the part of the curve that we're looking at, which I'm now highlighting in green. And looking at the green part of the curve, what is the range? The range is f of x is greater than 4. So that means f of x is greater than 4. And as we know that the range of f is equal to the domain of f inverse, so that means x is greater than 4 will be the domain of the inverse function. So there you go, fellas. That's your answer to part 3. Now there is a part 4 to it, but I want you guys to first digest this. In the meantime, let me look at the chat. What's going on here? Case 2. Yep, that's correct. Oh, hello, Ali. कैसे हैं आप? Good to have you here. कैसी है आपकी तैयारी? Sir, what should we do on the last day? Pray. Pray. किसी के साथ कोई ज़्यादती की है, किसी का दिल दुखाया तो उससे माफ़ी मांगे. ऐसा ना उसकी बद्दुआ आपको लग जाए. I noticed that, but sir, Zen. अच्छा बेटा, this is not a competition, ठीक है? वो भी वही मैथ पढ़ा रहे हैं जो मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ, ठीक है? So again, let's not get into that. So what is its nature? Can you... Okay, if d square y upon dx square is equal to 0, then that's a point of inflection. You don't have that in your syllabus, okay? It's neither maximum, neither minimum. So वो basically इस तरह का point होता है. You don't have that in your syllabus. वो इस तरह का point होता है. point of inflection. Okay, अब परेशान मत हो जाना कि ये point of inflection सुन के, ठीक है, अपने टीचर को ना ब्लेम करना शुरू कर देना कि ये तो आपने हमें पढ़ाया नहीं. अगर नहीं पढ़ाया तो it's not in your syllabus, nothing to worry about. Okay. Sir, will this be helpful for O-level AdMath students? No, no, no. Please don't watch that. Okay. I mean, please don't watch this. If you're an AdMath student, then don't. Okay. Sir, I'm nervous and scared. What should I do to overcome it? Get good sleep. Get good sleep. Get good sleep. Eat well. Don't experiment with your mind. Don't experiment with your body. Okay. Don't do anything that's out of routine. Don't eat anything that's out of routine. That's the best advice that I can give you. I feel like my preparation is good enough as I've done 5-6 past papers. And I've got really good marks, but I still feel if the paper is difficult. If the paper is difficult, then the threshold will save you. Okay. Sir, mensuration ke formulas yaad karne ki zarurat hai? Yes, of course. Okay. The examiner is expecting you to know all the formulas of the shapes that you did in O-levels. Okay. Whatever it is that you've done in O-levels, the examiner is not going to come in and tell you explicitly कि आपने वो पढ़ के आना है. Okay, don't we use basic trigonometry? Do we learn basic trigonometry in AS Math? No, we don't. Don't we know what sine theta is equal to? It's equal to opposite upon hypotenuse. Do we learn that in AS Math? No, it's assumed that you guys would know this. And we're talking about maths here. We're not talking about AdMaths here. Do we learn angle properties of circles in AS? No, we don't. But we know from prior knowledge that if you have an angle that's opposite the diameter, it's going to be equal to 90 degrees. There you go. सर पीएम का पेपर है और सुबह देर तक सो जाएं, मसला तो नहीं है. Okay, that's a good question. But just sleep early, okay? Nothing beats a good night's sleep. It's not about the number of hours, it's the quality of sleep that matters. Sir, if domain is less... Acha, let's complete this, okay? Let's complete this. Now again, whoever is struggling with... questions related to finding range of reciprocal functions of rational functions, then this will help inshallah. So basically here's what the deal is. You have to find g of f. So let's write down g of x. G of x is equals to what? Is equals to 2 over x minus 1. Okay, let's write down f of x. Where are you? Here it is, x minus 2 the whole thing square plus 3. X minus 2 the whole thing square plus 3. Okay, now if we find out g of f of x, that means we have 2 over x minus 2 the whole thing square plus 3 minus 1. Okay, let me make sure I haven't messed up anything. No, I haven't. Okay, so now g of f of x is equal to what? Is equal to 2 over x minus 2 the whole thing square plus 2. Okay, now over here on the side we will do the working for the range. ठीक है, अब range मेहनत से ही आएगी, ऐसे नहीं आ जाएगी. You'll have to put in some effort. So you have 2 over x minus 1 and f of x is equals to what? F of x is equals to x minus 2 the whole thing square plus 7. Now if you're finding out g of f of x, that means this is what you're doing. 2 over f of x minus 1. And what do we know about f of x? We know that f of x is greater than 4. Okay, didn't we find that out earlier? When k is equal to 1, f of x is greater than 4. Okay, now let's replace f of x with 4. If f of x equals to 4, notice what happens. Here's what happens. 2 over 4 minus 1, which means it's equal to 2 upon 3. If f of x equals to 5, then notice what happens. You have 2 over 5 minus 1, which means you have 2 over 4, which is equal to 1 upon 2. Now this is 0.66 something in case you're wondering, and this is equal to 0.5. Okay, so identify a trend. If f of x is, let's say, 10, then notice what happens. You have 2 over 10 minus 1, which is equal to 2 over 9, which is equal to 0.2222. If f of x is equal to, let's say, 1000, so 1001 kar lete hain, so it's easy to work out. Then notice what happens. You have 1001 minus 1, which means 2 over 1000, which means 0.0012302. 0.002. Okay, now can you observe a trend over here? Notice what is the greatest value we started with and where are we heading? 307. Okay, yeah, you're right. It's 3, it's not 7. But khair, it's not going to change your overall answer, so thank God for that. But yeah, identify a trend over here and tell me where are we heading. I was a CBSE student from before year 12. Okay, so that means you're from India. Functions when? What do you mean functions when? Beta, kal paper hai. Okay, Nafeem, you might want to recheck your answer. First of all, that's not how you write down the range. Okay, 0 is the smaller value, so it should be on the other side. Okay, and there's no 4. Sir, is it important to draw the graph of? Is it important to draw the sketch neatly if you're? No. If it's a sketch, so a sketch is not supposed to be done neatly. Okay, it's a rough sketch. Yes, good job, Arafat. It's greater than, less than 2 upon 3, greater than 0. Yes, good job. Okay, so notice that the smallest value that we start with is 2 upon 3, and we're heading towards 0. So what do we say? We say g of f of x is greater than 0 and less than 2 upon 3. It's greater than 0, less than 2 upon 3. There you go. That's it. That's your answer. How do you define yourself as a student? I'm respectful towards my teachers. Acha, azan ho rahi hai. Let's wait for the azan to finish. Okay. And we might take a 5-minute namaz break. So just a small request. Could you show how to find angles between two lines referring to the question? It's okay, Ali Abbas. It's not like I'm going to make you stand outside the class for coming late. So, nothing to worry about. उसके लिए एक formula है. There is a formula for that. And there's an easier way to it as well, where you just take the tan inverse of the gradient and you find the angle that the line makes with the horizontal. Sir, will tomorrow's exam be hard? Like I said earlier, Cambridge wale mere rishtedar nahi hai. Acha, you're asking for my prediction. Okay, sorry, I didn't read the entire question. Well, I don't do predictions. Sorry to disappoint you. I don't do predictions. Okay, let's do a question where... Acha, wait, azan ho liya. No, ASP1 does not have trigonometry, integration, and differentiation. कैम्ब्रिज वालों से रिश्तेदारी क्यों नहीं कर लेते? क्यों भाई, क्यों करूं? बेटा रिवाइंड करके देख लो ना. ठीक है, स्ट्रीम आगे पीछे भी हो सकती है, इन केस यू डिडंट नो. I always make silly mistakes. What to do? If you know you make silly mistakes, then that's great news. I mean, just be more conscious of it. Okay, there is no magic way to fix silly mistakes. Just be more conscious of it. Okay, see, what do people do who put on weight easily? They're more conscious of what they eat. Well, ideally they should be more conscious of what they eat. Okay, but it's not like they can get something done through which if they eat they don't put on weight. It's natural. Okay, so naturally if you have a tendency of making silly mistakes, then just be more conscious of it. That's it. Okay, check as you go along. Sir, is the white Casio calculator allowed in AS papers? Which one is the white calculator? I haven't seen the white one. I've seen the grey one. I've seen the black one. I haven't seen the white one. Sir, what's wrong with your face cam? It gets zoomed in and out continuously. Oh, that's because you're right. Kabhi kabhi uski AI tracking jo hai wo, it messes up. Especially when I have my mic in front of me. So let me turn that off. So basically my camera tracks my movement. Okay, anyway, Johnny, let's resume this. So basically it says on the diagram shows the graph of y equals to f of x. On this diagram, sketch the graph of f inverse of x. Okay. How do you find f inverse? You reflect it along the line y equals to x. Okay, something that we've been doing since O levels. Okay, transformation. So if you take this part of the curve and you reflect it, this is what happens. Okay, and then if you take this part of the curve and you reflect it, then this is what happens. So it becomes a nice petal. Okay, now then it says it is now given that f of x equals to so and so, where x is greater than -2, lesser than 2. Find an expression for f inverse of x. Okay, we can do that. So we equate this to y equals to -x over square root of 4 minus x square. Okay. Okay, it's a lot of work that's required now. So first of all, we cross multiply. Okay, if we cross multiply, then here's what we have. We have y outside and then 4 minus x squared inside the square root, which is minus x. Now, how do we get rid of the square root? We square both sides. When you square both sides, so we have y square multiplied by 4 minus x square, which is equal to x square. Okay. So now here's what you can do. You can multiply this. So 4y squared minus x square y square is equal to x square. So let's get all the x's on one side. 4y square equals to x square plus x square y square. Then you take x square common, so that's going to be 1 plus y squared. Yeah, it's going to be 1 plus y squared. Okay. Let me make sure I haven't done anything wrong. No, it's correct. Which is equal to what? Which is equal to 4y squared. Okay, and then when you make x squared the subject, here's what you get. You get x squared, which is equal to 4y square over 1 plus y squared. And then you take the square root on both sides, due to which you get plus minus. So f inverse of x equals to plus minus square root of 4x square over 1 plus x square. Now read the question carefully and notice if it's not asking you to give your answer a certain way. No, it's not asking you to give your answer a certain way. So what we can do is, you can write it like this also. F inverse of x, which is equal to plus minus 2x over square root of 1 plus x squared. Okay, now the big question. The big question is, are we going to go with the plus sign or are we going to go with the minus sign? What are we going with? Are we going with the plus sign or are we going with the minus sign? So यहाँ पे तो दोनों हैं. यहाँ पे तो greater भी है, lesser भी है. What do we do now? Do we go with the plus sign or do we go with the minus sign? सर जी P1 की तैयारी 1 day में हो जाएगी? बेटा हो जाए तो मुझे भी बता देना. Okay, we go with the minus sign. That's correct. Sohaila, good job. Why is that? Why do we go with the minus sign? Why not with the plus sign? No, we don't go with the plus sign. We go with the minus sign. But the question is why? No, we don't go with the plus minus sign either. We only go with the minus sign. And that's what my question is. कि ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हैं? Why are we only going with the minus sign? सोचें और जवाब दें. Okay, we're not going to go with both. Okay. I'll zoom out enough so that you can see the question. Okay. But we're definitely not going with both. Okay, now the correct answer is minus. Now the question is, let's say we don't know. Okay. Yes, given in the question, yes, the function is minus, you can say, so it's because of that. Okay. So the correct answer is that we're going with the minus sign. Okay. But if you ever find yourself confused, I'll tell you a trick which you can apply. Okay, if you ever find yourself confused, then I'll tell you a trick which you can apply, which can then help you decide what sign to go with. Okay, so basically you pick a value in between the domain. Okay, so you pick a value in between -2 and 2. Okay, let's say we pick 1. 1 is in between, right? So notice what happens if I plug in 1. So f of 1 is equals to what? F of 1 is going to be equal to -1 over square root of 4 minus 1. So that means here's what we get. We get -1 over square root of 3. Now if f of 1 is equals to -1 upon under root 3, then what if I take f over to the other side? That means 1 would be equal to f inverse of -1 upon under root 3. I know you might think this is lengthy and not necessary, but this is just something that you should know. Okay, whether you want to use it or not, that's up to you. So f inverse of -1 upon under root 3 should give us what? Should give us 1. Okay, now this is when we check. Okay, this is when we plug in -1 upon under root 3 in our function, and we check whether it's the plus sign or the minus sign that gives us 1 at the end. So if you do that, if you do -2 upon, again, we don't know. Okay, we don't know whether we're going with plus sign or minus sign. So 2 into -1 upon under root 3 over square root of 1 plus -1 upon under root 3, the whole thing squared. Now work this out in your calculator. Okay, work this out in your calculator like I'm about to. So 2 into -1 upon under root 3, and in the denominator we have square root of 1 plus, so might as well take the positive value because when we square it, it becomes positive. Okay, so this is what we get. When you plug this in as it is in your calculator, we get -1. Now tell me, what should we go with? Should we go with the plus sign so that it becomes 1, or should we go with the minus sign so that it becomes 1? Obviously, the answer is that we should go with the minus sign, because only when you go with the minus sign, that is when it becomes 1. And we were supposed to get 1. Okay, what is it that gives us 1? The plus sign or the minus sign? No, it's the minus sign that gives us 1. Okay, so that is why when you're taking the final answer, you go with the minus sign and not with anything else. Okay, but say I just realized that if we had taken 0, life would have been a lot. No, actually, it wouldn't have been easier. So yeah, हमने सही value दिया. Okay, you could have done this with any other value also. Okay, and yes, you can deduce from the graph as well. I know you can deduce it from the graph. Okay, looking at the inverse, you can see that it's going to be minus. Okay, but like I said, you can, this is something that you should have in, it's like a weapon. Okay, the more weapons you have, the better prepared you are. So this is like a method which you should know. Okay, and you can always use this to determine whether we're going with the plus sign or the minus sign. In this case, yes, we're going to go with the graph. Okay, but like I said, anyway, now that's not the, this question is, this part is not the reason why I did this question. It's actually part C and part D. Now let's look at part C and part D. Part C says the function g is defined by g of x equals to 2x for x is greater than -a and less than a. State the maximum possible value of a for which fg can be formed. Okay, now remember what I said. Fg, remember the Redo method, okay, which is that the range of inner, and what's the inner function over here? It's g. Range of the inner function, which by the way is what? Is basically 2x, because we don't know what the value of x is. So technically the range is as good as the function itself. It's 2x. Okay? And this should be equal to what? This should be equal to the domain of the outer function, which is f. And what's the domain of the outer function? The domain of the outer function is -2 and 2. Okay, -2 and 2. What does that mean? That means 2x should be either equal to 2. Okay, so in that case, what is x equal to? X is equal to 1, and the same 2x should also be equal to what? Should also be equal to -2. In that case, what is x equal to? X is equals to -1. Now notice this is what we're ending up with. We're ending up with x is greater than -a and x is less than 1. Now what is the value of a? A is equal to 1. Okay, now I'll explain this again. Fg to be formed, the domain of the inner, the range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. What is the range of the inner function? The range of the inner function depends on 2x. Okay, 2x itself is the range of the inner function. This 2x should technically be less than 2 and should technically be greater than minus 2. You can look at it like this also. The 2x, which is the range of the inner function, should technically be greater than 2 and should also less than 2 and should be greater than minus 2 also. And when you divide everything by 2 in order to make x the subject, so that means x is greater than minus 1 and x is less than 1. And now if you compare this with what you have over here, you can see that a is equal to what? A is basically equal to 1. Now then it says, assuming that fg can be formed, find and simplify an expression for fg of x. Okay, find and simplify an expression for fg of x. So this should be easy now. So we have f, okay, which is minus x over square root of 4 minus x squared. So let's write that down. Let's write down f of x first. F of x equals to minus x over 4 minus x squared. And g of x is equals to 2x. Okay. So f g of x basically becomes minus, in place of x we write 2x. Okay. In the square root we have 4 minus, in place of x we write 2x. Don't forget to square the entire thing. And now we have f g of x, which is equal to minus 2x over square root of 4 minus 4x squared. And there you go, fellas. That's your answer. So what if a student is infected with chickenpox? Okay. So I don't know. I don't know what to say to that other than get well soon. What else, sir? The answer was 9 over 10? No, it's not 9 over 10. What question are you talking about? Nope, the answer was 9 over 10. The answer wasn't 9 over 10. So you're discussing some other question. Okay, sir, today math paper 0580, there was a question saying you need to give, like the answer is perfect. Okay, I don't know about that. I don't want to get your hopes high and say you're not going to lose any marks, and at the same time I don't want to disappoint you by saying that you will lose marks. Yes, you can take 4 common and bring it outside. So it says simplify. Okay, yes, if it says simplify, then we have to do that. Okay, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yes. So we take the minus 2x and inside we take 4 common, so we'll have 1 minus x squared. Now 4, when you take the square root of it, becomes minus 2x upon 2. Inside the square root we have 1 minus x squared, so this and this gets cancelled out, and now we have minus x over square root of 1 minus x squared. There you go, that's your final answer. Thank you for pointing that out, whoever did that. Okay, let's do another question. Let's do another question which deals with range and domain. So let's do this one. Let's do 2 more questions. This one and the one right after. Okay. Alright, let's see what this says. It says express 2x squared plus 12x plus 11 in this form. Now it's up to you how you want to do it. If you want to take 2 common, or if you want to do comparing of coefficients, I'll leave that up to you. Okay. But either way, the answer will be the same. So if you take 2 common, you'll have x squared plus 6x, okay, plus 5.5. So this is what we're looking at, 2x squared plus 6x. You leave a bit of space, you write 5.5, you leave a bit of space, and then you close the bracket. Now what do we add to complete the square? We add 3 square, which means we subtract 3 square as well. This becomes x plus 3, the whole thing square. 5.5 minus 9 is going to be 3.5, but with a minus sign. So minus 3.5. And then don't forget that there's a 2 waiting outside. So 2 into x plus 3, the whole thing square, minus 7 is your answer. Okay. So there you go. And again, like I said earlier, even though it's not asked in the question, but it's just a good idea to make a sketch of it so that we know what the deal is. This is a minimum curve with coordinates of turning point at minus 3, 7. Okay. So that means there's no need to have positive x-axis. I mean, too much space on the positive x-axis. So minus 3, and I think I said minus 7, but it's actually minus 7. So somewhere over here will be minus 7. Okay. and we're looking at something like this. Not exactly like this, but you know, something like this. Okay. Then the question says the function f is defined for by 2x square plus 12x plus 11. Okay. And then it says okay, yeah. Sorry about that. F of x is 2x squared plus 12x plus 11 for x is lesser than or equal to minus 4. Okay. Now let's see what's going on at minus 4. At minus 4, what's happening is this. If you plug in minus 4, now I don't know if this is like this value is the correct representation, but let's find out. First, let's find the inverse, and then we'll see what's going on at minus 4. 2x plus 3, the whole thing square minus 7. You take minus 7 over to the other side. At the same time, we divide it by 2. So this is what we're looking at. X plus 3, the whole thing square. We take the square root on both sides. So now we have x plus 3, which is equal to plus minus square root of y plus 7 upon 2. Okay. So x equals to plus minus square root of y plus 7 upon 2 minus 3. Then you do the last step, which is f inverse of x. Now what sign are we going to go with? We're going to go with the minus sign because there is a lesser than sign used in the domain. So minus square root of x plus 7 upon 2 minus 3 is our final answer. Okay. Now the question is asking us to state the domain. Okay, so let's see what's going on at minus 4. So if we plug in f of minus 4, here's what we get. 2 of minus 4 plus 3, the whole thing square minus 7. So minus 4 plus 3 is minus 1, square of which is 1, into 2 is 2, 2 minus 7 is minus 5. So f of minus 4 equals to minus 5. So this is minus 5. Now, since it's less than, that means this is the part of the curve that we're looking at, which basically means that the range as per our new domain is lesser than or equal to minus 5. As you know, we're only looking at this part of the curve. That means it's lesser than or equal to minus 5. Now, since the range of f is the domain of f inverse, so that means the domain will be, oh, it's not lesser than, it's greater than. Sorry, my bad. It's greater than or equal to minus 5. क्योंकि ऊपर जा रहा है ना? Okay, sorry, my bad. Yeah, so since the range of f is the domain of f inverse, that means it's going to be x is greater than or equal to minus 5, and that's going to be your final answer. So there you go, fellas. That's your answer. No, I don't teach further math. So how do we know whether to give minus or plus after finding inverse? If the domain is greater than, then it's plus. If the domain is lesser than, then it's minus. Yes, you can compare coefficients to get your answer. Okay, I said that at the very beginning, that comparing of coefficients is also an equally valid method of finding the inverse. So you can do that also. Okay, now let's do another question. No, not today. IGCSE paper 4 की stream में कल करूँगा. Not today. Okay. Sir, will you take tuition? So for that you can contact me in July. Okay, for that you can contact me in July. No, you shouldn't do past papers before the exam. If anything, you should just go over the work that you've done already. Okay, but not past paper. Not at all recommended. Okay, so it says the function g is defined by g of x equals to 2x minus 3 for x is lesser than or equal to k. For the case where k is equal to minus 1, solve f of g of x equals to 193. Okay, f of g of x. Now let's write down f of x here since we don't have it written on this page. 2x plus 3, the whole thing square minus 1. F of g of x is basically equal to what? Is equal to 193. Okay. Now finding f of g of x basically means in place of x we write 2x minus 3. Okay, so this has come in place of x. Okay, the plus 3 as it is from before, from the original function. Okay, And then we have, then what do we have? Yeah, then we have minus 7. Okay, so minus 3 plus 3 gets cancelled out. Don't forget the square. Okay, so, and don't forget that this is equal to what? This is equal to 193. So technically this is what we're looking at. 2 into 2x whole square minus 7, which is equal to 193. You don't really have to expand it. Why? Because if you take minus 7 over to the other side, so it becomes 193 plus 7. And then at the same time, if you take this 2 over to the other side, it gets divided. 193 plus 7 divided by 2, so that's 100. So x square equals to 100, which means x is equals to plus minus, wait a minute, 193 plus 7 divided by square root करके क्या आंसर आ रहा है? Wait a minute, 193 plus 7 is 200, 200 divided by 2 is 100. 100 का square root करेंगे तो plus minus 10 आएगा. ठीक है. Now what value are we going to go with? We're not going to go with just a minute. Why do I feel that I've done something wrong here? Four x square into 2. Okay, I don't think I've done anything wrong here. That's correct. Okay, but don't get carried away and write down both the answers. Notice that there's going to be only one acceptable answer. Okay, and since x is less than, since x is lesser than or equal to, notice in the question over here, x is lesser than or equal to what? X is lesser than or equal to minus 4. And if you go back to the question, so the question where this information is not given, but for this part, x is lesser than or equal to minus 4. So what value are we going to go with? We're going to go with x equals to minus 10. Okay, and there you go. That's your answer. X equals to minus 10 is your final answer. Sir, 2 को bracket में 2 8x square. Okay, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I was wondering, I've done something wrong. Okay, yeah. So it's going to be 4x square, which is equal to 100. X square is equals to 25, which means x is equals to plus minus 5. Okay, and that is why we will have x equals to minus 5. So we're going to go with minus 5. That's the correct answer. Okay, apologies about earlier. Okay, now thank you for pointing that out, whoever did that. So we have the value of x. Okay, remember that we're only going to go with minus 5, not with plus 5. So then it says state the largest value of k for the composite function fg to be formed. Okay, fg. Now g is the inner function, f is the outer function. And remember the Redo method, okay, which is that the range of inner function, which is technically function f, okay, range of the inner function, which is what? Let's write that down. Range of the inner function, which is equal to, we can't work that out. Okay, range of the inner function is basically 2x minus 3. Okay, now it's going to be lesser than, okay, so it's definitely going to be lesser than. Why? Because this is a straight line and x is lesser than or equal to k. Now what is the domain of the outer function? What's the domain of the outer function? Domain of outer function, which is g. That is, let's see if it's given. Domain, yeah, here it is. X is lesser than or equal to minus 4. X is lesser than or equal to minus 4. SAE, let me double check. Yeah, okay. Now for that, for the composite function to be formed, remember the range of the inner function, which is f over here, has to be, no, the range of the inner function, which is g, ulta likh diya. Range of the inner function, which is g, should be equal to the domain of the outer function, which is f. So that's what we're going to do. 2x minus 3, we're going to set it equal to minus 4. Okay. Now if we solve this, we have 2x, which is equal to minus 1, and x is equal to what? X is equal to minus 1 upon 2. Now what was the question asking for? The question was asking for the largest possible value of k for the composite function fg to be defined. So that is minus 1 upon 2. And there you go. That's your answer. Yes, ठीक है, वो range inner function is g, outer function is f. Okay, I fixed it now. अगर हम plus minus 5 लिखेंगे, yes, definitely. Okay, if you write plus minus 5, you will definitely lose marks. Okay. Now this is the last question that we're going to solve. Okay, and this is a tricky question. It's from May, June 2019, paper 13. Okay, especially the first part. Then onwards, it's pretty easy. Actually, no, it's not easy because you have to find out. Yeah, it is easy. Now again, notice that you're given a lot of space. Okay, and that is, yes, Amna, I fixed that. The inner function is g, the outer function was f. Okay, I fixed that now. Okay. Now notice that you're given a lot of space over here. That is so you can do the working. Okay. Now, so first of all, the question says the function f is given by f of x is 48 over x minus 1 for 3 to 7. The function g is defined by 2x minus 4 for x is greater than a, lesser than b, where a and b are constants. Find the greatest value of a and the least value of b, which will permit the formation of the composite function gf. Okay, so gf, that means f is the inner function, g is the outer function. Okay, now a redo method says that the range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. Range of inner, which is f. Now the thing is, we will have to fight, we'll have to not fight, but yeah, you will have to put in some effort for the range of the inner function. Okay, so if we plug in 3, so we'll do that, I'll do the working over here. If I plug in 3, here's what happens. 48 over 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 equals to what? Equals to 2. 48 upon 2 is equals to 24. And just like that, if I plug in 7, so 48 over 7 minus 1, 7 minus 1 is what? 6. 48 upon 6 is equals to 8. Okay. So that means the range of the inner function, f of x, is lesser than or equal to 24, and it's greater than or equal to 8. Okay. So these are the two values between which the function will revolve around. Okay. Now, what is the range of the function should be equal to? The range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. Now, what's the domain of the outer function? What is the domain of g? It is greater than or equal to a, lesser than or equal to b. Now, notice, do we have the value of a? Yes, we do. Do we have the value of b? Yes, we do. So, x equals a equals to what? A equals to 8, and what is b equal to? B is equals to 24. And there you go, fellas. That's your answer. Okay. Now, here's part 2. Part 2 says it is now given that the conditions for the formation of gf are satisfied. Find an expression for g of f of x. Okay. So g of f of x basically means twice of 48 over x minus 1. Okay, minus 4. Now, it doesn't say that you have to simplify, so we leave it over here. 96 over x minus 1 minus 4. That's good enough. Okay, please note that this 2 only gets multiplied by the numerator. I don't expect AS or A-level students to be making this error where they treat the fraction as a vector and they multiply everything by the numerator and the denominator by 2. AS level math is easier than AD math O levels. Yeah, in a P1 is easier, but M1, S1 can be challenging. Then it says find an expression for g f inverse of x. Okay, so we can do that now. Y is equals to 96 over x minus 1 minus 4. We take the minus 4 over to the other side, so it becomes y plus 4. 96 over x minus 1. Yes, the range of the inner function should always contain the domain of the outer function. Okay. Now, if you cross multiply, you have x minus 1 into y plus 4, which is equal to 96. Now you take the y plus 4 over to the other side, so x minus 1 is equals to 96 over y plus 4. I've taken a different approach over here just so that I can avoid LCM. X is equals to 96 over y plus 4 plus 1. And then you do the final step, which is f inverse of x equals to 96 over x plus 4 plus 1. Sir, I saw someone who looked like you at Jummah prayer. Do you live in Clifton area? Well, where did you see me? फिर मैं आपको बताता हूँ. Did I go to Clifton for Jummah Namaz? When was this? Say a word in Urdu. What do you want me to say? आप क्या चाहते हैं? I speak in Urdu all the time. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि पूरी स्ट्रीम इंग्लिश में ही है. Sir, don't do any past papers today. Yeah, don't do any past papers today. Just revise your notes. Don't test yourself unnecessarily. वरना खामखाई का panic attack शुरू हो जाएगा. Anyway, so that's it. I just messaged you on the gram to do a composite function video, and here you are. Okay, it's your lucky day. So in part 3, we just equated g of f with y and made x the subject. That's it. Achha, I heard it's raining in Lahore. Is that true? And if it is, then what is the situation like? चलो एक सवाल और करना है? Or should we call it a day? What time is it? It's almost 8. Sir, this is in related functions, but we won't need to use the formula. That's fine. Okay, you have two formulas because if the common ratio is positive, then you have another formula. If the common ratio is negative, then you have another formula. Okay, so you can use one, it's fine. Well, eventually, if it's negative, then negative will cancel out. Okay. दो drops गिरे हैं? Huh? Well, a student was telling me it's raining cats and dogs. Okay. Did you divide 96 by 5? Raining after a bad paper. No, I didn't do that. I didn't divide 96 by 5. कहाँ गया? I didn't divide 96 by 5. Why would I do that? Yes, I've already answered that question, beta. Yep, it did rain. Karachi must be deprived. No, we're not deprived. We're happy. Okay. इधर भी बारिश होती है. So yeah. Sir, could you please do quickly? If you use Pascal's triangle to solve binomial, why would you do that? I mean, जब कैलकुलेटर है and you're allowed to use it, तो बेटा ज़िंदगी में पहले कम मसले हैं जो आप और मसलों का इजाफा कर रहे हैं अपनी ज़िंदगी में. There's nothing wrong with that. Pascal's triangle is in every book. It's explained in every book. So go ahead. Sir, I shouldn't do a past paper today, even though I didn't study maths for the previous 2 days because of physics. No, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that you do a past paper. I would recommend that you just go through the past papers that you've solved already. Okay. Sir, for composite inverse function, do we always find out the inverse first, then input composite? No, first you find out the composite function, then you find the inverse. I mean, you can do it the other way around as well. Okay, you can find the inverse first and then make composite, but it's easier to first find the composite function and then do the inverse. Okay, थोड़ा सा काम बच जाता है. Please explain how to find the domain and range of composite functions. बेटा पूरी कहानी ख़त्म हो गई और आप पूछ रहे हैं. I've explained this बेटा. ये पूरे पिछले 1.5 घंटे से मैं ये कर रहा हूँ. Okay, February March 2023 paper I solved. If you missed the live stream, I'm sorry. The video I've taken it down for copyright. Okay, I think Cambridge took it down without me taking it down. मुझसे पहले उन्होंने वीडियो पे कॉपीराइट स्ट्राइक लगा दी. वालेकुम सलाम. So can I study other subject today? Go ahead. Okay, so just some general tips and tricks. Okay, first of all, don't test yourself unnecessarily. Okay, no need to put that extra stress on your mind. Even though it's a PM paper, then still just make sure to get enough sleep. Make sure that you guys eat light at night. Okay, don't eat like a heavy meal at night, otherwise you'll have trouble sleeping, your sleep will be disturbed, and you won't feel fully fresh when you wake up. Okay, then make sure that you have a fully functioning calculator. Okay, if you don't, then just do a quick stationary check right now. Pencil, scale, eraser, sharpener. You don't need a compass or anything like that, but calculator, make sure it's fully functioning. And make sure to learn all the features that you have in this calculator. Okay, especially simultaneous, quadratics, quadratic inequality. What else do you have? Yeah, I think that's it. That's pretty much it. Okay, then make sure to first identify the easier questions. Okay, sometimes it's the case, I'm sure you guys must have noticed this earlier in O-level math or IGCSE math as well, that sometimes there's an easier question that's towards the end of the paper. So you don't want to spend too much time on the difficult question and then realize you don't have enough time left for the easier one. So make sure that you first scan the paper. So like for example, if let's take any yearly paper, take out any yearly paper over here. So maths, कोई भी recent yearly past paper निकालते हैं. Here it is. So the paper is for 1 hour 50 minutes. Okay. That was just the first strike. Okay. Yeah. So if the paper is for 1 hour 50 minutes, then take out like 10 minutes, not more than that. In fact, for scanning the paper, take out like 5 minutes. Okay. Make sure to highlight the questions which you clearly think are easy and attempt those first. Like I said, you don't want to end up spending too much time on difficult questions and then realize you don't have enough time for the easier questions. Okay, and you'll get the easier questions wrong as well. So highlight the easier questions, do those first, go over your notes, stuff related to differentiation, integration. Plan your answer. If the question is asking for area under the shaded region, plan it. Don't just brainlessly start attempting it. Plan it that, okay, I need to find out the area of this region, then I need to add the two, then subtract the two. Okay, just like that. If you're finding out, let's say, area of shaded region in circular measure, again, plan your answer. All right, so plan your answer. Sir, salam, today was my IGCSE paper. All right, good to hear that. Sir, Zenomatrix has a different method for... Yeah, okay, if you're comfortable with a certain method, then go ahead. Okay. If you're certain with a certain... comfortable with a certain method, then go ahead. Okay, I'm not saying that this is the best method out there or anything like that, but go ahead. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah. So, rules of differentiation. Remember how to differentiate composite functions. Remember how to differentiate power functions. Rules of integration, how to integrate power functions, how to integrate composite functions. When do we integrate? So we integrate for 3 reasons mainly. One is to find the area under the curve, the other is to find the equation of the curve, and the other is to find the volume. Okay, remember the 2 formulas that you have for volume if it's rotated about the x-axis, y-axis. Okay, make sure to memorize all the formulas for coordinate geometry. Okay, distance, gradient, midpoint. Okay, how to find the equation of perpendicular bisector. Remember what the equation of a circle looks like. Okay, remember all the rules related to circle, that if you have a radius and tangent, they're perpendicular. Okay, and always, here's a suggestion, always go the extra mile, in the sense that if let's say you're solving a question that's related to circles, just sketch and see what's going on, so that you have an understanding, okay, this is what it looks like. Okay, just make a rough sketch so that you understand what exactly is the situation. उससे काफ़ी perspective मिलता है, उससे काफ़ी चीज़ें clear हो जाती हैं. You can see what the radius is like, you can see what the tangent is like. Okay, if let's say you run out of space, then you can always use the pages that you have towards the end. Okay, but make sure that you number it clearly. I do not recommend that you attempt the paper in pencil, even if you've heard like 20 stories where people did the paper in pencil and they got full marks. Okay, do your paper in pen, follow the instructions. Okay, about your calculator, remember that, make sure that for the correct question, it's in the appropriate mode. So for example, if it's a question on circular measure, make sure it's in radian mode. If you're solving a question of trigonometry where the domain is in pi, in terms of pi, do it in radian mode. Okay, and then once you're done with that, make sure to bring your calculator back into degree mode. Okay, and it's always a good idea to reset your calculator before you start. Remember to go over all the rules of binomial, what to do when x is in the first term, what to do when x is in the second term, what to do when x is in both the terms. Okay, and also remember like what are the terms that you multiply so that you get the given coefficient. Okay, ऐसे नहीं है कि बस rules याद कर लिया, so बस brainlessly rules apply कर रहे हैं. Okay, even if you've memorized all the rules, okay, and all the tricks and everything, just keep your eyes and ears open. There may be a catch. There may be something where the rule won't apply. So like I said, keep your eyes and ears open for that. Yes, for sketch you can use a pencil. In fact, I will recommend that you use a pencil, so that if you want to erase it and tweak it a little, you can do that. So no, I didn't get a distinction. Domain of composite function, but I've done the whole stream on this, so just rewatch the stream, you'll understand it. Domain of sir, I don't attempt the paper in pencil, I saw the paper in pen, and then I have completed the paper I used. But I think आपने उल्टा लिख दिया. You probably meant to say that you first do it with pencil and then you resolve it with pen and then you erase your pencil writing. Okay. No, I wouldn't recommend that. Sir, what will happen if my calculator is in radian mode? मुझे नहीं पता बेटा. Why don't you find out for us? Okay. Why don't you find out for us and tell us what happens so that I have an answer to that question next time someone asks me. Okay. S1 stream, I don't know if I'll be doing it. Let's see. I'll try and take some time out to do it. If I do it, let me know what topic to stream on. Yes, any working, whether it's simultaneous, quadratics, make sure that you have enough time to make sure that you show the working. For those of you who are complaining about silly mistakes, okay, I have a very simple answer to that. Okay, and something that I'm sure you guys must have heard me say like 100 and 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. If you've realized that you're making silly mistakes, great. Okay, that's great news actually. Now just be conscious of it. If I know that I have a tendency of making silly mistakes, then I would be extra conscious if I'm giving an exam, because I know that I make silly errors. So just like that, if you know you make silly errors, then just be careful. Check on your answer as you go along. Okay. Yeah, I've been to Islamabad multiple times. Sir, do you think P1 threshold will be... Let's hope so. Let's hope the threshold is lower. Okay, I can't say anything about threshold food. Well, definitely. As far as food is concerned, Karachi. Which is the most difficult P1 paper? Look at the threshold and decide for yourself. Okay, I can't say that. No, I'm not a gamer. Okay, I'm not a gamer. Anyway, so that's about it. Okay, I'll leave you guys here. Best of luck for your exam. Make your teachers proud, make your parents proud, make yourself proud. Okay, and please do not test yourself unnecessarily. Don't put yourself under unnecessary stress. Whatever has happened has now happened. Okay, if you try and test yourself unnecessarily, if you try and attempt a past paper, you'll end up making matters worse. So I will not recommend that. Okay. Now, so that's it. Best of luck. Let me know how your exam goes. I'll post a question on my Instagram and I'll do it on YouTube also. Let me know how it goes. And also let me know what topics come in the test. What topics came in the test. Okay? In the exam, not test. Same thing. Okay. Anyway.